My name is Brian Abbott, and I'm the founder of 310Antiques.com. Okay, I'm going to cover two things in this segment with regards to watches. Ladies' watches and unusual wristwatches. Unusual wristwatches, they're not necessarily in that they are complicated, that the movement is complicated like in pocket watches, but more so that the shape case is a little bit unusual, or the dial is unusual. Maybe the dial's enameled, or in this case you have what is called a skeleton dial. And this watch is called an Accutron Space View. It's one of our early electronic watches run by a battery. And as you look through the crystal, you can see the inner workings of the watch. That's your skeleton view. It's a solid 14-karat gold case. Bulova Accutrons are, early ones are just collectible, but a Space View is one of the more collectible styles. And then the shape of the case is really important. So the more unusual your shape case is, the more valuable it is. And that holds true with a lot of wristwatches. Round being your most common shape. Then moving on to, say, a square being a quite common case. Oval, rectangle, you get a little bit better, you get into rectangle. A triangle or asymmetrical shape, that's getting much better, they're much more unusual. As you think about the average guy, let's say in 1955, who went out shopping for a wristwatch, he's going to buy a round case watch most likely, or a square case watch. So, you know, a guy who's not so much the average guy, maybe a little cutting edge in fashion or what have you, he buys the really long rectangle looking watch. Well, so fewer of them would have been sold. And then you've got the guy who's just really stepping out there, and he bought a watch that's in the shape of a triangle, where there weren't too many made, they weren't too popular, very few people bought them. Therefore, very few of them survived. Therefore, they're hard to find today, and that adds value. In terms of ladies' watches, it's not really good news. By and large, ladies' watches are not very collectible, and there's a pretty easy explanation for that. They're generally very small. Okay, they're generally a third the size of a man's watch. So they're generally not very complicated. You have very simple movements inside. But most importantly, generally speaking, there's exceptions to everything, but generally speaking, women's watches were purchased and worn as a fashion accessory. And as times change and tastes change and what's fashionable changes, the collectability of the watch goes down. You fast forward 25, 35 years, occasionally there's a resurgence, let's say, of like for retro watches from the 1930s through the 1960s, that kind of thing. And there's a bit of a market for it, but it's still fashion oriented, so it's a very fickle market. The collector's market, those are the people that never go away, and they're always pursuing something, collectors. And collectors are generally, of watches, are pursuing men's watches. So generally speaking, men's watches are kind of where it's at when it comes to collectible watches. There are exceptions, of course, but that's the general rule.